Hello everyone, it's Harmony, and welcome to the visual raid guide for the Ascension Arcadia Championship Heavyweight M3. This is the third boss of the 8-player raid introduced in patch 7.4 and is unlocked by completing the optional level 100 quest called Iron Fist. Just as a quick warning, you can fall off this arena's platform, and doing so will result in instant death, so be careful not to get too close to the outer edges of the battlefield. With that said, let's jump into the guide. The boss will begin with Crown of Arcadia, a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members. Next, the boss will use Draw Steel, equipping either a scythe, axe, or sword, and will then follow up with Smashdown. The Smashdown telegraph changes depending on which weapon the boss is currently wielding. If the boss is wielding a scythe, Smashdown becomes a donut-shaped area of effect. To avoid damage, quickly move as close to the boss as possible. If the boss is wielding an axe, Smashdown becomes a circular area of effect centered on the boss. To avoid this attack, simply step outside the marked telegraphed area. Finally, if the boss is wielding a sword, Smashdown appears as a cross-shaped pattern relative to the direction the boss is facing. To avoid damage, move out of the marked telegraphed areas. You should now be able to preemptively move to the necessary safe areas before the boss even begins casting Smashdown, simply by recognizing which weapon the boss is wielding. Void Stardust targets all players with a circular area of effect that deals unavoidable damage. Each player will be struck a total of 3 times over the next 10 seconds, and the group will need to spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. You must also keep moving during this mechanic, as each strike will leave behind a small telegraphed circular area of effect at your current location, which will detonate after a short delay. Trophy weapons will summon the boss's sword, axe, and scythe at various locations around the battlefield. The boss will tether to these weapons as it prepares Assault Evolved, dashing to each one in turn and immediately performing Smashdown. The boss will use the weapons in the order indicated by the tethers. If you are unsure about this mechanic, you can safely and easily avoid damage by moving directly on top of the scythe as soon as the weapons appear. Dance of Domination is a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members multiple times in rapid succession. This attack also leaves lines across the battlefield floor that will explode after a short delay. You must quickly move to one of the safe areas before this happens, which are located in the centre of any of the large triangles. Raw Steel will target all non-tank classes with a circular area of effect for unavoidable damage, spread out to prevent overlapping damage from one another. Raw Steel will also place a stacking tank buster on the main tank. This means both tanks and only the tanks must stand and group together to share the incoming damage, while using defensive cooldowns and shields to mitigate it. Cherub Dystopia is a group-wide attack that will reduce all party members to 1 health. Healers, be prepared for this mechanic. Ultimate trophy weapons will summon the boss's scythe, axe, and sword in a random sequence at various locations around the battlefield. The boss will now use Assault Apex, dashing to each weapon in the order they appeared and immediately performing the corresponding attack for that weapon, similar to Assault Evolve. If a weapon has a swirling wind animation, it will leave behind a lingering whirlwind after the boss dashes to it. These whirlwinds should be avoided, as touching them will deal damage and knock players back. There will be no more than 2 whirlwinds on the battlefield at any time. Once the boss has dashed to the final weapon, the remaining whirlwinds will unleash 2 sets of cone-shaped area of effect attacks in both the cardinal and intercardinal directions, with a brief delay between each set. To avoid taking damage, you should stand between the cones of the secondary area of effects and wait for the first set to detonate before quickly moving into one of the newly opened safe areas. Immortal Rain alters the boss's appearance, but otherwise has no known functional effect. One and Only is a group-wide attack that deals unavoidable damage to all party members. Meteor Rain conjures 4 towers around the battlefield. At least 1 player must stand in each tower to absorb the initial impact and prevent them from exploding for heavy group-wide damage. Each tower will also leave behind a meteor. Next, 2 portals will open, one to the north and one to the south. Each portal will tether to a meteor. The tanks must stand between these tethers to intercept the incoming attacks. If they fail to do so, the tethered meteors will explode, dealing massive, unavoidable group-wide damage. While the tanks handle the tethers, a random non-tank player will be targeted with a stack marker. The rest of the party must group up and stand together to share the incoming damage. This entire sequence of meteor, portals and stack markers will immediately repeat a second time. Double Tyrannization is a group-wide attack that strikes all party members twice, with each hit destroying the closest meteors. To survive both strikes, you must hide behind a meteor that is positioned directly behind another meteor, ensuring both are placed between you and the boss. Flatliner is a linear area of effect attack down the centre of the battlefield that will split the arena's platform into two sections, while also knocking all players away from the boss. To avoid being pushed off the platform, you must stand outside the marked telegraphed area while still remaining close to the boss. Majestic Meteor consists of 3 sets of circular area of effects, each targeting a random player. To avoid these, simply step out of the marked telegraphed areas. While this is happening, several portals will appear along 2 sides of the platform. Each portal will eventually fire out a frontal linear area of effect. You must make sure you are not standing directly in front of a portal to avoid taking damage. The boss will now place 2 pulsating flares at the outer edges of the battlefield. These are proximity markers that deal unavoidable damage based on distance. The closer you are, the more damage you'll take. To minimize the impact, all players should move as far away from these markers as possible, while still avoiding the boss's other mechanics. Fire and Fury will unleash both a frontal and rear, cone-shaped area of effect that will each span the full length of the battlefield. To avoid these, simply step out of the marked telegraphed areas. The boss will now conjure 4 towers, with 2 in each section of the battlefield. At least 1 player must stand in each tower to absorb the initial impact and prevent them from exploding and dealing heavy group-wide damage. These towers will also knock players upward and backward in the directions indicated by the tower markers. These mechanics will now repeat until the boss conjures the towers for a second time. While resolving this set, the boss will turn to face one of the platforms before casting Arcadian Avalanche. If the boss is facing your platform, you must use the tower's knockback effect to move to the opposite platform. After the towers are resolved, the boss will lift the platform it is facing and slam it down onto the remaining platform. Failing the Arcadian Avalanche mechanic will result in being thrown to your death. The boss will use Crown of Arcadia once more, dealing unavoidable group-wide damage, after which the battlefield platform will be repaired and restored to its original size. Heartbreak Kick will summon a multi-strike stacking tower marker. The party must group up and stand together to share the incoming damage and remain grouped together until the attack animation finishes. From this point onward, the boss will randomly use Great Wall of Fire, a linear tank buster that spans the full length of the battlefield. Tanks must ensure this attack is faced away from the rest of the party, as it will also damage any players standing directly behind the initial target. It should also be noted that Great Wall of Fire will leave behind a lingering area of effect that detonates for secondary damage after a short delay, so tanks should move away to avoid taking any unnecessary damage. These mechanics will now repeat and with increased overlap until the boss has been defeated. Thank you for watching. If you found this guide helpful, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and, most importantly, take care of yourself and each other.